This past year on Easter Sunday morning, I got a text around 6 a.m. that the power was off at the church. There was no electricity. And that's a worship leader's nightmare. So I got on the phone and let our band know, and a tech team and pastors and other church members, gave them a heads up, be prepared, there's no power at the church. And when we got there, we grabbed candles and lanterns and flashlights and everything we could, and we were placing them in bathrooms and hallways and dark areas of the church. And we put candles in the auditorium, expecting to have Easter Sunday morning in the dark. Our band and choir came, and we rehearsed everything with no sound system, just our voices and acoustic instruments. And there was sort of a camaraderie that was being built that morning. Like, this is very different, but this is exciting. The Lord might do something really unique today. And so we were looking forward to potentially having Easter Sunday morning in the dark with no technology whatsoever. So we went downstairs for our Easter Sunday breakfast with the whole church in the dark, and people were coming into the building and they were figuring out what was going on. And with about 15 minutes before the service started, the lights came on. And so we ran upstairs and turned everything on and got a quick sound check and rehearsed like half of a song. And then we went for it. We had our Easter Sunday morning pretty much like normal, but the team knew everything that we had gone through that morning. And it was definitely a memorable Sunday. We were anticipating, a much simpler worship service, sort of organic, back to true worship. And the lights came back on and we had a normal Sunday morning, but it was very, very memorable. Often in our worship ministries, we are very dependent on technology. We use sound systems and video screens and lighting and live stream and back wall monitors and lots of different technology to accomplish what we typically do on Sundays. It's easy to get caught up and let those things become a distraction. Years ago, Matt Redman wrote a song called Heart of Worship that famously talked about stripping away all of the technology and all of the distractions from our worship and getting back to a true, simple worship. And I wanted to share today from John chapter 4, verses 23 and 24. Jesus is speaking to the woman at the well regarding worship, and he says, "The hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." There are many applications from this teaching, but I think one is certainly for us as worship leaders when we think about technology. Jesus is teaching, among other things, that worship is not tied to a particular place or to particular external circumstances. And so us as worship leaders and worshipers, we don't need to allow our worship to be dependent on technology. So we're going to talk through some things today to help us not be too reliant on it and to not panic when things don't go well. Number one, we need to keep the big picture in mind. When we're gathering as the church, the important things that need to happen are the preaching of the word, congregational singing, corporate prayer, confessing our sins to one another, encouraging each other, building each other up, sharpening one another, partaking in the Lord's Supper, baptisms. There's lots of things that happen in the church that need to happen that are not dependent on technology. So if we could keep that in mind, keep the big picture in mind, it'll help us sort of relax and not get too worried about our technology. Next, we need to prepare for problems. We've all had the Saturday night text that a drummer can't make it the next morning, or the confidence monitor failed, or in our case on Easter, the power went out. We've all been there. We need to have contingency plans, backup plans for when those things happen so that we don't panic, so that we don't get too worked up when things don't quite go the way that we want them to. Psalm 112, verses 6 and 7, this is a great verse. It says, "For the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever. He is not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting in the Lord." And this is a great verse for building up our faith and trusting in the Lord. But I think it applies in this situation when we're planning our worship services and doing rehearsals on Sunday mornings, for us to not be afraid of bad news. If something goes wrong, it's okay. We can trust in the Lord. Maybe he's got something unique planned, and oftentimes stripping away technology can bring us back to a simpler, more pure form of worship, and that's a good thing. Next, we need to appreciate what we have. If you've ever been on a mission trip or been in another context and see how other churches worship around the world, it's humbling. Lots of these churches don't have the technology that we have in the West, in America, And their worship services are not contingent on those things. And that's a good thing that we can learn from. And so when we gather as a church, we can be appreciative of what we've been entrusted. To whom much is given, much is required, right? So we want to be good stewards of what the Lord has provided for us, but not let the technology become a distraction for us. We want to use it to enhance our worship and to be an encouragement to our church, but not let it be the main thing. And then finally, we don't need to let technology replace competency. Not long ago, I led the music at a funeral, and I walked in and there was no sound system at all. So it was about 100 people there, myself, my voice, and my guitar, and that was it. So I led the music in a way that was just very unique, no sound system whatsoever. But that's what I'm used to doing on Saturday nights when I'm preparing for Sunday morning worship. I'm at home with my guitar and my voice, and I'm working through the songs. So I wasn't too uncomfortable in that environment, even though it was very different than what I expected. So we need to be competent in our leadership. We need to be able to lead the songs if the power goes out, if that drummer can't make it, or if a vocalist can't make it, or if something goes wrong. We can still lead the songs in a competent way and not let us be completely dependent on technology, but we can trust in the Lord. Again, He might be doing something interesting that we don't expect by stripping away all of the technology. So bottom line, I believe that on that Easter Sunday morning, some unique things happened within our team. Everybody worked together and rallied around. Let's put this together, even without what we're used to, and everybody worked well together. Nobody panicked. We were kind and gracious with one another, and we learned some things that Sunday morning. And again, going back to true and simple worship, the things that need to happen in the church service are not dependent on electricity. We had a very memorable Easter Sunday morning, and I believe the Lord was honored. So we learned some things on that Sunday to not be too dependent on technology. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you have a great week.